Alright guys, such Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, 3 more teams will be eliminated from CDL Major 3 tonight, but the big question still remains, what were the teams discussing at the bar last night when it comes to potential roster changes for those already eliminated from the tournament? OpTic Texas completed the three-peat this weekend. Top 8 at Major 1 when they had Huke and Kenny in the roster, top 8 at Major 2 when it was Pred and Skyz in the roster, and top 8 here at Major 3 after their recent changes. Where do they go from here, if anywhere? Is it time for the king to come and save this team? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. I did just want to quickly mention, of course, because we are going to discuss Mercules today. Yes, the venue is far from spectacular. Kind of crazy to look back on. This was the scene in 2019 for the Challengers. Obviously, this was not just Challengers. This was the stage, but it happens on this stage for the championship that year. And then this is where we are today with the CDL Major. So not exactly ideal, we talked about that, but you know, there were some fans there. People, of course, were trying to get a picture with Merc. Now, Mercules has played very well so far. That shouldn't be a massive surprise. Like, he's been considered one of the top prospects. And look, Dylan Rex, he's not played well on Ravens, no doubt about that. They bombed out of the tournament again. He's only had a couple of series to try and prove himself, but it's not been looking great. Mercules has joined, I think, a better team, right? Toronto have the better core, and when you get an opportunity like that, often you're going to look a little bit better. But still, he's proven he can do it with both weapons so far, and he's made a pretty impressive audition, Mercules, in the couple of series that he's played. Now, Toronto, do they have, like, first right of refusal to his services? Realistically, after this tournament, are they going to bench Beans for him? Are they going to bench Insight for him? I think both of those scenarios are pretty unlikely. Although, if you're Toronto, maybe in an ideal world, you keep him around on the bench, and then next year you consider whether you bring him into the starting team at some point. That's something to think about. But there should be other teams out there considering bringing Mercules in. I think with the performance that he's had so far, that is certainly a discussion for OpTic we'll get to in a second. Challenges, of course, is also underway. I mean, Illy was getting ready to go yesterday, of course, so we'll see how this weekend progresses for him because, as I say, it's a big weekend. Likely teams were at the bar last night discussing potential changes. And if that's true, whoever wins in Challengers or whoever Challengers player shows up in the Pro League as Mercules is currently doing, they will be in the convo. This was fascinating, right? Because Hitch mentioned it, that he was expecting the Pred OpTic series, the Falcons OpTic series to end in a pretty spicy manner. And he was going to say some crazy stuff, and of course, that opportunity never arrived. And it was kind of the OpTic Classic in a way. They turn up to winners round 1, they lose, they go down to losers round 1, and they're undeniable, right? Like, OpTic are probably the best losers round 1 team of all time. Whenever they drop to losers, they will almost always win. They did it again here. They looked, you know, honestly on fire, kind of, against the Falcons. And then they play a heavy hitter in FaZe. They make it close, and they find miraculous ways still to lose the series, as we talked about yesterday. Austin Lidergoat says, of course, Slasher, awful stage, nothing else to say. Good luck to those left in. So lots of questions to Ravens too. Are they going to make another change? Probably not. Does dropping Vivid mid-season ever work? Probably not. We've seen evidence of that before. Look, I still think that for Ravens it was probably worth the risk because they were regressing with Vivid. I think they needed to try something, but whatever they've tried, it's not worked out so far, and like, they're still fine for the World Championship. We'll see the standings in a few minutes because they are certainly a big question right now. But the big scalp of yesterday, of course, being OpTic Texas, you know, top 8, top 8, top 8, the last 3 events, even with different rosters. The first time that OpTic have done that since 2014, like, it is, you know, it's worse than people would ever have possibly expected. There are many OpTic fans after last year's World Championship who said, and understandably said, look, we won champs. Whatever happens now happens, even if we have a difficult year coming up in BO6, at least we won champs. And that is true. Sure, they did. But I don't think any of those OpTic fans saying that would ever have expected it to be quite this bad and getting to the point where OpTic fans are genuinely turning on the team, which is something that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime. And that's kind of where we are today. That you've got, I mean, you know, OpTic fans, obviously in quotation marks, right? Because are they true fans if they're not supporting the team and all this? But, you know, there were people out there that wanted Pred to beat OpTic yesterday, knock them out of the tournament to kind of send a bit of a message they've gone the wrong direction. And how do OpTic fix this? I mean, it's a very difficult question. Look, I don't disagree that getting rid of Kenny seems like the correct move, but I was still consistent in my opinion the entire time that getting rid of Kenny at some point will cause issues, right? In terms of the leadership element and the cultural element and these other factors. And look, to be fair, this OpTic team with Kenny this year at times was equally tragic to the way they look now, maybe, even worse at a point as well. So not to say that they should have kept Kenny necessarily, but just they had to recognize getting rid of Kenny, there were, you're giving over that kind of leadership quality to somebody else on the team, and maybe that is not the wisest thing to do. And that's my question on how they fix this situation, is that they make so many errors, they throw away so many advantageous positions, that swapping out one player for another, I mean, they've tried it before, and it's not affected anything. Now, is that to say Shotzzy's the problem, Dashy's the problem, or whatever? I don't think it's a clear, there is a problem. But I think it should be clear that simply swapping out one player for another is not going to magically resolve the situation they currently find themselves in. So I guess the conclusion is, maybe you need to still make a change with the intention to just ride out the season in the best way possible, and then really have a deep think going into the off-season as to how you fix this issue from the ground up. Because I think at this point it's about preservation for the rest of the year, trying to at least make it to champs and be respectable, then have a serious think about maybe culturally or from I don't even know, an overall perspective, something has to give. Not to say that they should be getting rid of Shotzzy or getting rid of Dashy, but I think it is more from a mental perspective of, okay, how are we going to approach the situation? Because it doesn't really seem to matter what team that they field. Very similar trends emerge when it comes to crunch time, right? So OpTic get eliminated top 8, but as I say, clearly the current team isn't good enough, and on the current trajectory, are OpTic fans confident they're going to make it to the World Championship? Even if they do right now, they're likely to be the 8th seed. That means you probably play FaZe in the first round, maybe you play Thieves. Either way, it ain't exactly looking pretty, right? And you don't want to play Drazah and FaZe if you're OpTic, because his record against OpTic now, at least with FaZe, is 10-1. And as he says, hashtag CEO. This is what he does. Kind of crazy as well, right? aBeZy has eliminated OpTic from 11 tournaments in COD history. I know that aBeZy made a bit of a comment on it last night on the flank and said, well, I was always in the winners bracket, so I wasn't really doing too much of the elimination. But he says, look, Drazah's now eliminated him from 10 different tournaments, which is kind of wild to think about. Again, Huke was pretty much the only one to comment on it. I know that people say that he doesn't have the check mark, which is true. He's actually never had it since he returned. He did have it, and then since he returned for Pred, he's not had it since then. So that's kind of what's going on there. But he says, sorry and confident, we will turn it around. Will they get the opportunity to turn it around with the same roster? That is the question, because I also think that there's a part of OpTic where, Shotzzy still believes that they're OpTic, if they put it all together, they'll be one of the best teams. And maybe that's true on some level, but I just don't really see it right now. That's kind of what Shotzzy was talking about and saying, look, we're going to get there. Once we get our game plan set, we will eventually get there. We're slowly meshing together as a team. Is there the time? Is there the belief and the confidence in the team? I mean, yeah, this is the question right now. And some of the numbers are genuinely so outrageous. I mean, I know we talked about their search and destroy lot yesterday, but this is borderline impossible to believe, really. So this is the first blood record of OpTic this stage. Dashy 10-9, Huke 11-10, Skyz 5-8. So you add those up, that's +1, +1, -3. So overall, between the 3 other teammates, they're -1 on first blood engagements. But Shotzzy 26-8, an absolute generational stage from Shotzzy in terms of search and destroy man advantages. aBeZy has numbers like this, but very rarely that impressive in terms of kills to death ratio, right? Shotzzy, you watch his POV a lot of the time, this guy's doing it all. The execution from there, and look, Shotzzy's also part of the problem here in terms of executing on these rounds from that point onwards. But this is almost impossible to believe that OpTic could finish this stage negative in search when they are, what is Shotzzy there? +18, so they were at 17 more first bloods this stage and they had first deaths, and they still find a way to lose searches. It's absolutely unbelievable, and the round 11 against FaZe yesterday was especially criminal, but we saw it so many times on the Hacienda and other maps where they'll take a life lead, someone will throw away their life for no reason. It's just look, if you can't win those searches, especially because that was one of the big reasons that Skyz was coming in, is that, okay, their search maybe is going to get better as a result. The team just looks woefully lost in the mid-rounding in search and destroy. You change out a player, does it solve those fundamental issues? Frankly, I'm not sure that it does. But do you need, I mean, Parasite made the point, maybe you just want to take the approach of bringing all the slaying power we can get and just try and bowl over the other teams on pure slaying and talent and just run around together, rather than try and make the smarter plays that clearly they're not making right now. Skyz has not been good. He's not been good this whole year. Kind of crazy to think about. When Kenny was on this OpTic team, he had like a 0.84 this season, which was the worst in the league. I think Skyz this year, since he's been on OpTic this last stage, has a 0.85. So the numbers are very, very similar between Kenny and Skyz. Can you justify keeping Skyz? I think the only way that you can is to say, well, look, doesn't matter who you bring in, the team has the same issues. It's better to work together and try and figure it out. But the Flank boys are pretty convinced. Skyz has to go. Octane said it would be criminal incompetence if they keep him after this stage, and he gives the thoughts of, look, Merc's been basically auditioning for your team, bring him in, pick up the phone to either Omit or Toronto, or frankly to Merc himself, and figure out what the situation is and get him onto the roster. Even Donny Temp made this point on stream last night and said that he reckons that Shotzzy and Dashy are at the bar as soon as they get separation from their teammates and are talking about who they're going to get, what are they going to do, and try and find a way out of this predicament that they are presently in. But with Minnesota Rocker still in the tournament, the standings look like this. So Boston at 180, Miami at 170. Of course, both of these teams played today. If they were both to win, which is unlikely, but if they were both to win, they would have guaranteed champs by, a million miles. But I think realistically, they're probably going to have done it now. Like, a Miami, even if Miami bomb out the tournament from here, they're probably at least going to win a couple of qualifiers next stage, and that puts them at least to 190, and that surely is going to be enough, with OpTic and Rocker still kind of floundering here. So realistically, I'm not saying it's impossible for someone to overtake these teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if Boston and Heretics are now effectively locked in for champs. So really, it's a fight for that 8th spot as it stands. OpTic are sitting at 145, but they're now eliminated, right? It could have been 130, but they're eliminated. Top 8, they picked up 15 points. Rocker, they got 15 points for their win yesterday. They win today. They get another 15 points. They put themselves right back in the conversation. And certainly a 30-point gap. It's not over yet, and it will not be over until Major 4 regardless. But Rocker have the opportunity today to start to make something really impressive happen and, well, put some serious pressure on OpTic Texas. There's no doubt about that at all. This is the clip that I wanted to share here, just a brief one really before we discuss the games of the day, because after everything was over, the OpTic boys on the watch party in the Airbnb were looking over at Scump and saying, look, we might need you, right? So the way that Scump reacts kind of makes me think that he's at least contemplated it. Like, the thoughts has at least crossed his mind about what it would look like to come back. I don't think he would want to do it. Would the team get better with Scump? Like, genuinely, I actually think the answer is yes. Like, on the flex, as outrageous as it is, I actually think they'd be a better team. Would they be good enough? Does Scump want to do it? Frankly, does it really matter? Like, if Scump comes in and they get a bit better, like, they're not going to get drastically better to the point where they're going to be winning champs, right? So it just doesn't make sense for Scump to do it. As, look, from a content perspective, obviously, as a return for Scump would be immense, but I just don't think it's realistically going to happen, right? But I mean, it's got so bad that it's genuinely an option.
We might need you, kid.
Please. Oh, please.
We might need you, man.
When they come back from this tournament, right? When they get home, listen, tonight, as soon as they get like some separation, like they're gonna talk about who they're getting. Like I just know how like events work. And, like if not tonight, like nah, yeah, they're talking about it tonight. It's literally it's literally the free. They're 100% talking about who they're gonna get tonight. Like there's a 0% chance they pick up Prolute for Caesar, but I'm telling you, like they would be better. They would literally be better. So it's like they need to make an unbiased. They just need to make an unbiased choice, bro. Like
so, this is the way the bracket presently sits. There are 5 more games today. It will start with Rocker versus Ultra, the other elimination bracket game. Massive game, of course. Ultra would have been the favourites before the tournament, but without Beans and with Mercules, look, they're getting a bit better. I mean, they played well against Gentlemates, really well, actually. But Rocker, I mean, it's so much is on the line for them that I think a victory, you know, a rocker in 5, I think is going to be my call there, just because Ultra, I think their search and destroy without, you know, obviously with the new pickup is maybe going to be a little bit more questionable. So Ultra could easily win, right? They really could. And if Merc gets the job done there, it's going to be really impressive. And Ultra could still make a run potentially all the way to Sunday. But I think the Rocker, this is the chance. Like, this is the bracket that Rocker have to potentially catch up or really in a good spot for champs, right? Because they've beaten Ravens. They play a compromised Ultra team. Then they play the loser of Boston and Surge, which is, I mean, one of the most winnable games you're going to hope for really to get to Sunday, bare minimum. And that would tie them with OpTic in the standings, right? So anyway, that's the losers bracket. FaZe will play the loser of Thieves and Miami. Thieves, of course, are now the favourites for the tourney. Could Miami do some damage? I think you can't count them out, but I'm definitely back in Thieves. Boston Surge to me is real tasty, actually. They played last major. Surge won, but it was kind of close. This time, can Boston go one further? I think that they can, and I'm going to back my prediction of Boston making it to Sunday, but I feel like it could be through the losers bracket. But, you know, very much enjoyed your thoughts. As always, in the comment section below, just 4 teams will remain at the end of the evening. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.